Hello and welcome to Buildings of Tomorrow. My name is John Lester, and in this episode we'll be talking about taking modern approaches to old building stock. I'm joined today by Tyson Suter, a Global Business Development Manager for Digitalization at Siemens Smart Infrastructure. Tyson, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We have new ways. We've learnt a lot of how we can absorb and collect data. Mm-hmm. How does this affect our approach to existing buildings?
So I think when someone comes up with a new solution, the argument against it always is, "Oh, this would never work in my old building." And a lot of the times it's true. The capital expenditure amount that you would need to do it it's too large for any building owner. What we can learn from the carefully designed buildings of today, the ones that are looking for not just the next couple of years, but for the next 10, 15 years of data availability and data collection, is this approach and this digital language for the building can then be applied to older buildings through a small incremental changes. So providing a language that allows a building owner or a building manager to be able to set themselves up for success, to be able to use all the available data in their building for their processes, that can be implemented through small works on site. So as you change small equipment or controllers, or do plant upgrades, or do retrofits of a foyer, this is the stuff that you can say, okay, let's take what we've learnt in a new building and apply it to this smaller project. And eventually over time, we're going to get it to the level we want all our buildings to be at.
So everything that we learn in these new buildings, these cutting edge buildings that we're really trying the future and preparing ourselves, as you mentioned, for the future, we can take some of those learnings and really apply small pieces of them to start to connect this existing building stock. Is the existing building stock such a big deal? Is this something we need to focus on?
Yeah, so only 1% of all buildings is new. So the existing building stock is the harder problem, but also where we're going to get the most value. So it very much is saying, okay, we've got all these great solutions, we've got the evidence behind them, but a large portion of our buildings are never going to be able to achieve them. So it is saying, okay, how can we take this great overarching solution for a new building and break it down into smaller pieces and apply it to our building to get the most value? You don't need to apply it 100% to get any value. You could apply 10% or 20% to be able to say, oh, let's achieve something. Let's get closer to that overarching goal or vision that we have for our buildings.
And that's an interesting point I liked that you made, because with data and with anything that we do within a building, you have to have a goal. Right? You have to understand what you're trying to understand. You have to have a good knowledge of what you're trying to discover before you start. Otherwise, you're making decisions with no pre-thought and no consideration.
And we see now the building owners and the building managers globally are really saying, we know what we want to achieve, and we know the value of data. So how can we set up the foundation of our buildings to enable all the great things we want to do with technology? And that language and that conversation has really developed over the last 5 to 10 years. So it's really good to see that now there's a huge push from the building owner, and we're even seeing the tenants pushing for it now as well. So it's really coming together that everyone wants this as a solution, and we've got the infrastructure and the foundation shown as a success on a new build, and we can then take that and apply that into all buildings.
You mentioned before digital language. Can you give me a bit of an idea of what you mean by that phrase?
Yeah, so it's about saying, if I want to turn on all these smart technologies at the end of the build, or in my new building or my old building, I need to be able to understand and set up successes in the install part of any job. So if I can create, here's my naming framework, here's my semantic tagging framework, here's how I understand data, here's what I want to achieve at the end of any building to classify it as an A grade or a B grade. That is the framework that you give to the contractors and say, if you want to work on my building, if you want to win the work inside this building, you need to answer these questions. You need to make these as the requirements for any work on site. So not prescribing any one provider or solution, but saying, here's what we want to achieve. You need to be able to do that if you want to work in our building.
So taking the KPIs, taking the expectations, from that deriving what information you'll need to achieve that, and then creating this framework for people to be able to give you what you want in the format and the structure that you'd like.
Yeah, and then you have consistency across all your buildings. So bring it into a single interface and saying, great, I understand how all my buildings work. It could be different systems, it could be different providers, but they all achieve the same thing at the end of the day.
And just to close, I think that's an important point as well. When we talk about data, in the end, once we've collected it and we understand it, it doesn't matter where it comes from.
Exactly.
It can come from any system or any building. It still gives us information that we can process in the same manner.
Exactly right. And if it's in the same expected format, all our systems will work. And that's what we really want to achieve.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
No worries.
And thank you all for joining us here on Buildings of Tomorrow. Please like, share, or comment this episode, and also ensure to subscribe to us. We'll see you again soon.